Gear Tasting Radio is brought to you by Imminent Threat Solutions. ITS provides knowledge that empowers individuals with indispensable skill sets to explore the world and prevail against all threats. Right now, as a special thank you for all podcast listeners, we're offering 10% off in the ITS store. Simply use the code GTR to save 10% at store.itstactical.com. Welcome to Gear Tasting Radio, where we offer an in-depth look into the usage and philosophy behind the equipment in our lives. I am joined, as always, by Rob Henderson.
Hello.
And I'm Bryan Black. And today we are going to break down the navigation portion of what I am going through in my bug-out bag. So I've been going through this and
dealing with some stuff.
Realizing that dumb me 5 years ago did a lot of things that smart me now would change. Maybe it'll be like that in another 5 years.
We got a tweet from somebody that also found old power bars in their bug-out bag.
Nice.
So you're not alone.
I've been dared to eat the said power bars. However,
I'll eat it.
That's
fine.
I am going to try them.
Yeah,
when we get
why
to the
not?
food portion, I will try it. I'll give you guys the satisfaction of me dying from a power bar.
We ate MRE Skittles that had
That's
lime
true.
in them, and lime hasn't been a Skittles flavor for like 10 years.
They were actually surprisingly still good.
Yeah, not bad.
Okay, so I took out all the information and products and stuff that I had that dealt with navigation inside of that. Surprisingly, I didn't have much, and I'm kicking dumb me because if I was actually going to do something out in the field and have to use this equipment, I would have been mad.
I think it's a good look, though, because I think navigation is overlooked a lot of times from
different
angles.
Just diagnosing the stuff I had. Well, let me go through it first. So I had a Silver Ranger compass, and the reason that I used to use a Silver Ranger compass is because I used one when I was practicing land nav stuff in the military, so I was accustomed to a Silver Ranger. Mm-hmm. However, I have learned a lot about navigation since that point in my life, and you would be surprised to know that the military really didn't teach me everything they should have taught me, and one was to buy a compass that had 360-degree markings rather than 4 90-degree markings. So,
otherwise, you will feel real dumb.
Yeah, Rob knows that from experience because for some reason he also had the Silver Ranger bug.
Yeah, I bought it, and then we were doing something, and somebody said we needed to shoot like 167 degrees. Mm-hmm. And when your compass goes 0 to 90 and 90 to 0, you're like, I don't understand. So you're having to do math.
I don't need another step between me and toast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would have that same problem with this as well if I were out in the field trying to shoot a bearing with this. So just to kind of go through navigation as a whole, I'm going to talk about that and what I would change. But it's really based on the reason that I have the navigation skill set and what that consists of and why it's even important. So I've got in this little supplemental bag that I had packed, which I still consider this stuff to be navigation related. It's more like admin supplies, but at the same time, I would use a lot of this when I was doing navigation because you need a pencil for sure. If you're going to mark on a map, you should always do so with pencil. You should not do it with pen. So even though I'm looking at a pen in this little, plastic bag that I had, I would not use one when it came to marking a map. However, if I was writing stuff down in a notebook like this Write in the Rain notebook, I would use a pen. But things have changed over the years, and for one, I'm not going to take a small sharpened pencil into the field anymore because the tip breaks. So a while back, I had found these little tip covers, which I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole again. Let me just finish going through this. So I've got a number 2 pencil sharpened down. I've got a Write in the Rain pen that is that does have a cartridge in it. I just want to make sure because I have a spare cartridge for some reason. I thought it would be important to pack a spare cartridge.
Well, yeah.
You know.
Copious note-taking.
Because I'm going to be writing so much in the field. Oh, wow. I just noticed that the spare cartridge has exploded.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, that's funny.
Ooh, okay.
Well, so I would have a spare cartridge, but I probably wouldn't be able to write with it.
Once again, Texas Heat claims another item.
Yes, and I did have this bag in the garage for a long time, so it has been subject to extreme temperatures for sure. And I had it in my vehicle for a long time too, so...
That'll do it.
Yeah. I've also got a tape measure, so it's like a cloth That's the best way I can describe it, like a cloth tape measure that's folded up rather than a stick. And I would probably still take this just because from what I've learned from tracking and things like that and measuring footprints and, if I had to track somebody, I would need something like this. And while I know from experience that if I had a dollar bill is 6 inches. So technically I could get away with, having some cash in my bag and being able to measure things just because that's kind of a roundabout way of...
This guy's $4 long.
Yeah, right.
But it's kind of, to me, it's the same thing with the 360-degree thing on there. Is like a tape measure is exact, and you don't have to sit there and go, okay, well, it's $3.50 bills,
Yeah, so. But the likelihood of you having to measure something precisely like that while you're trying to survive is probably low on the totem pole. So,
but it's pretty light.
It would be a maybe. But anyway, I've also got a Write in the Rain notebook, and I prefer the spiral bound from the top version of these notebooks. Yep. I struggled for years with the, I don't know what you call them, like the edge bound notebook or book style opening notebook, and I always found myself wasting paper because I could only write so far onto the edge and. You'd open it to write, and it would fold back on you, and it was just a pain in the butt.
Super frustrating to keep your page open for reference.
Yeah. So I've also got one of those, and then I've got some janky pace count beads that I've had forever and a day. I think I actually came back home with these from the military, but either way, they're old, and I also have a UTM plotter. So basically, if I was going to use MGRS, I would basically plot my points with this. And the problem being with this is that I don't have a string tied in the middle here to pull a bearing on the map, because that's how you would use one of these additionally. Not only would you use it to mark a grid point with MGRS, but you can also take this and put it on your location and pull where you're going and actually find a coordinate based on the outer ring of this UTM scale. And this is a very small... I call them protractors. I don't know how many people still call them that, but that's kind of a leftover from the military kind of thing. But the bearing that I would pull is the same bearing that I would shoot and walk using a compass. So that's kind of where the compass, protractor, MGRS kind of thing comes into play. However, one of the big faults with everything that I have here is that I don't have a map. So I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, that'll do.
Yeah. So I have everything to navigate with, so,
Maybe you'll find a map along the way.
Yeah, I guess
that's a video game mentality.
I'd have to procure a map from the local store.
Map store.
Yeah.
I was just thinking in my head, where you even get a map? I guess like a rest stop area, but it wouldn't be a top-up map.
No. And then I also have this really janky thermometer / compass thing that I felt the need to put in there.
Is it accurate?
Years ago. So it's not accurate. It says it's 70 degrees, and there's no way it's 70 degrees in here right now. It's super cold in Texas. Like we're in the 20s, and we just now turned on the heater in this place. So, and anyway, the compass that's in here is just bubbled up. It's horrible. It's probably the worst compass you could ever have. So it's not really a good backup at all. But it does have a wind chill temperature chart on the back. So if I detected a certain miles per hour, I would know the wind chill equivalent.
So I see what's going on. You have the cloth tape measure, so you can hold it up and check the wind, and then you can consult your wind chill temperature rating on the back of your broken thermometer.
Because you need all that to know that it's cold outside, and you probably don't want to move right now.
So I can see this as like a good backup compass, and I'm sure that at the time it was packed, it worked great.
Yeah.
And same thing with the little button compasses. But yeah, that's interesting that it is consistently interesting for me to see how much the heat really has affected a lot of this stuff, because there are things like this pen. I never would have said that a pen cartridge would explode from heat.
Yeah.
And like, there it is.
Yep. That's why you should always take a pencil. So the Silver Ranger 2 is a pretty good compass outside of that issue with the 360-degree bearing adjustment. And that's it. So I had finished going through that. I'm going to kind of tear this stuff down now as if I haven't already talked crap about it. But I'm going to finish doing that, and then I'll kind of talk about what I would supplement or add. So the one good thing that I do like about the Silver Ranger is you can set the declination on it, which knowing the declination is important, and that changes every year. So you should always kind of get ahead on what the declination is.
Can you explain declination for a friend of mine?
So it's basically the shift in in degrees of the magnetic pull at your location, I guess, if I could probably sum it up. That's probably a bad description of it, but that's what's in my head when it comes to declination. It's basically a variation in the magnetic signature of where the magnetic North Pole is versus where you are at in the world.
I got you.
So
because that does change.
It does change, and that's if you looked at that arc across the United States of that, it's in degrees. So depending on where you are, you would set the degrees. Like for instance, this declination is not even set. Way to go, Bryan. Yeah. So wait, no, it is. Okay. So it's set to, let's see, it's set to 4 degrees, and I know for a fact that it has changed from 4 degrees over the years. It's more like 6 to close to 7 now.
That could be significant
where
at distance.
we're at. Yeah. So, you might think, oh, well, why does declination matter? It's only a degree or two. But if you were a degree off of somewhere and you walked for miles, just think about the variation of how far you would be off from your intended target. So, it's not going to come into play unless you were going to a specific location. So let's say I was, I'm going to go into a navigation lesson here. I'm trying not to do that. But let's say I was given a GPS coordinate, and I say GPS coordinate, but a lat-long coordinate, and I wanted to get there, and I knew that, hey, here's my coordinate of where my location is that I'm going to get to survive further. So henceforth, I'm going to pull out my map. I'm going to plot that point. I'm going to know exactly where I'm going, and then I'm going to establish where I'm at. And you can use, kind of your triangulation with different land features to figure out where you are. That's kind of a more advanced navigation lesson too. But once you know where you're at and where you're going, you would use something like that protractor that I talked about to, I said that word, protractor.
Protractor.
To put that on your map and then pull a bearing to where you're going. Now, if you see the bearing as, 45 degrees, and that is based on the datum of the map and where you're going, and then you come over your compass and then you walk that without setting declination, technically you're screwed up and you're gonna be off.
So is it one of those things that if you were shooting a bearing of 50 degrees in your declination?
I said that wrong. Okay. I want to clarify one point, is the declination is always on a map. So if you have a good topo map, that's what you should set your declination at, not necessarily what the current declination is. It really matters about on your map. So I'm going to open this map up just to show you that.
Interesting.
So there's actually a declination adjustment that's right here. And it'll tell you exactly what the declination is. So this particular designation or declination is set to 4 degrees and 24 seconds. So that would be, I would probably set it at 4 degrees just because 24 I would round down. Basically, you can't do tenths.
So you would set
like
it
that.
at 4?
Yeah, I would set it at 4 because that's the map I'm going by.
Okay.
So you always want to set that with your map, not necessarily what the actual declination is of where you are in the United States, because that doesn't really matter unless you are giving somebody a coordinate. If you're giving somebody a coordinate, you might want to think about adjusting to the proper declination that it's at, because they might do the same thing to find you.
Okay.
So anyhow, that's kind of the deal. You should always look at the map you have, and obviously I didn't even have a map with me and my stuff, so that's something I'm going to fix.
Yeah.
So I just grabbed a map from my other gear just to kind of demonstrate. But so I would replace the compass. That's one thing that I'm going to do first. Is I like these Pseudo compasses. I swear by the MC2, either the USGS model or the global model, depending if you want a global needle, meaning if you want to go to South America and figure out that you can still navigate, you need a global needle because it's good either north of the equator or south of the equator. So that's the one I like. This is just the USGS model, which is what I'm going to put in there. I don't find myself bugging out to South America anytime soon, or at least past the equator.
If you got yourself down to South America, you know enough about navigation not to need a special needle.
Yeah. There's also some scale on this too. There's a 1 in 24,000th scale on this compass. And
is that the recommended map that you should get a hold of? Because I noticed that seems to be the most common.
The most common topo map is a 1 in 24.
Okay.
And that's the best representation that I think works for what most people need. And you'll be able to use that. You also need to make sure that your protractor has a 1 in 24 scale on it, because if you are trying to determine an MGRS coordinate using a non-specific protractor based on the map scale, you're going to be off, and horribly off. Yeah, you have an even worse time than not worrying about declination. A lot of people, too, with declination, just to come back to that, will actually do the math in their head as they make calculations, which in my opinion is terrible. That's why I like setting declination.
Yeah, because you'll forget.
I just don't trust myself to be able to remember, especially in a situation like, you may be under duress in a survival situation. You don't necessarily want to have to do math.
Right.
At least I don't want to have to do math.
No.
I don't like doing math when I am coherent and know what's going on. So I sure as hell don't want to do math.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to tell, like, hey, when stuff's really going bad, you want to have to do math.
Yeah. So anyhow, I would replace the compass with a good Pseudo Compass, and again, this has the correct 360-degree bezel. So I think this is a much better compass. However, they're not too different in characteristics other than that. So it's still a base plate compass. It's technically a mirrored base plate compass, and the mirror on these, if for those listening that don't understand what a mirror is for in a compass, it's to shoot a bearing. So while you're using the cutout in the compass to actually point at where you want to go, you're tilting the mirror up, and you're actually able to look through the mirror without having to move the compass to see exactly what your bearing is. So you can find that out without having to basically change your direction and look down the compass and I hope I didn't move that when I was looking. So yeah, it's a good feature in my opinion. And I like the base plate too, because if you are setting this on a map and using it to do anything, it's got these little bumpers on it, so it'll glide over a map, that type of deal. So I highly recommend it. And it's also, that mirror can also double as a secondary signaling device, which is good too. So, and again, it does have a declination adjustment.
Cool.
And if you ever needed to find out the what is that? The angle. There's a word for that I'm not thinking of. But anyway, you can put this on you can find out how steep a hillside is.
Oh, interesting.
How steep a rock face is. So this is also a degree mark of.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, of how tilted things are. So anyhow. All right. So now that we've got the compass part out of the way, that's what I would replace it with. Again, map, that's coming over. Ranger's going over there. So now I've got a map, I've got my good compass, and then I would also replace the pace count beads. And the reason I'm doing that is not necessarily because these are bad. However, they're just bulky, and I like trying to have the principle of saving weight wherever I can, even if it's tenths of an ounce. But the other thing too is that I've built this recently. It hasn't been sitting down in the heat. I don't know how the heat affected these plastic sliders that I have on the pace count beads.
Get gummy,
right?
Or
And the principle behind pace count beads and why you want to take them is because that's how you know how far you've traveled. So in essence, you've got 9 beads on the bottom of the pace count beads, and you've got 4 beads on the top. So working off kilometers, every 1,000 meters you walk, you throw down a bead, and then once you get to 100. Once you get to 1,000, you pull down the bead for a kilometer.
So, okay. Yeah, I got it. Because the pace count you have in your head is 100 meters.
Correct. So you would need to do pace count work before you even went to know. You really should know your pace count based on any kind of condition. So with a pack, with a load on your back, up a hill, down a hill, at night, up a hill, down a hill, and just normally walking. So basically setting that up and walking a specific distance, we can... Before I go into a lesson, I'll put all that in the episode intel, because if you want to know more about pace count and compass work and MGRS and everything, we've got great articles on all this stuff. I don't really have to rehash it on the podcast, so we will link that to save a little time here. So again, replace the pace count beads. Those are going away. The protractor, I wouldn't necessarily replace because it's still a good protractor, but I just have another one here that's already got string through it to pull a bearing. And the other thing too that a string is good for on these protractors, just a little tip, is that you can take the scale of a map and make little marks, which I've just noticing I've already done here on this one. But these tick marks came from a specific map and a specific measurement. So when you're actually measuring the distance that you're supposed to walk, a string's great because it can actually contour to a trail or something like that. So if you need to know the exact distance and you don't just want to wing it, or even like taking the edge of a piece of paper and saying, I know that this is 1,000 kilometers. Well, you put that down, that's great. You know a straight line is 1,000 kilometers, but now you have to turn that line as it goes over land features and things.
Right.
So, and that's a good way of knowing the length of distance you're traveling, hence pace count. So you would be able to track, hey, I've walked enough time now, or I've walked enough distance, and I know that by my pace count because I should be able to see what.
So you're going to walk a 37-degree bearing for 4 kilometers, and then when you get, when you're at the 4 kilometers on your pace, you should be there.
Correct, because I can find all that out from the map when I shoot my bearing, or when I'm plotting my point on the map. So I know that it's this direction for this much distance. So therefore, that translates back into me, using my compass and pace count beads and everything together. So, and the notebook's not necessarily bad, so I would hang on to the notebook. It's still a Right in the Rain notebook and perfectly fine. No issues there. And then, so I would definitely ditch this little thermometer because honestly, in a situation like that, I'd rather not know what the temperature is.
Yeah.
The only time I would want to know is it freezing? Am I dealing with sub-freezing weather? How cold is it? And I'm probably going to realize that it's pretty damn cold if it's cold. So, and again, the tape measure, I'm probably not going to take that, just because the other thing that this Right in the Rain notebook has on the inside of it is an actual scale in inches. So I could use that if I needed to. So I'm just going to go with that and not have to worry about the extra weight from the tape measure.
Yeah.
So I would ditch the Right in the Rain pen as well. And I would take one of these Statler, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Close enough.
Yeah. But it's a mechanical pencil, and I've talked about these before many times on the podcast, and the reason I really like these is because the end cap actually gets removed, and the lead that's in here, I know it's in here.
Somewhere.
I think I stole the lead out of this for something else. Oh, there it is. Anyway, the lead that's in here is very strong, so it's tough to break. But then also, when you remove the lead, the end of this is a pencil sharpener.
That's so cool.
So you can actually sharpen.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. It's on the other side. So you can sharpen the tip of the pencil right there, which is, it's genius in my opinion, because now I don't have to carry around a stupid pencil sharpener. I don't have to worry about my lead breaking, to worry about using my knife to sharpen my pencil.
Well,
or
and this is
like
a pretty thick lead, so if for a lot of mechanical pencils, like you click it out and it's already kind of sharpened, but this one, because it's thick, if you push it out and you didn't sharpen it, you would have a really wide weight of writing, so you do need to sharpen it.
Yeah. So I like that a lot, and this is probably my favorite pencil on the market right now. The only problem is it doesn't have a built-in eraser, so you kind of have to take a supplemental eraser like these little ones that they make. They make a little plastic eraser that's, the outside is cardboard, but, eraser is still weatherproof too. So, and that's the other thing, we talk about having a waterproof notebook and being able to write on the surface like that. However, a pencil is always waterproof. That's why people use pencils on, like, diving. I always take a pencil with me diving underwater, and I would find a way to rig one of these up on my dive gear too, just because I like them that much. I'd be a little worried about losing the cap to sharpen it.
Yeah.
But that's a thing. That's a real thing underwater, because if you're using a dive slate to communicate, and I've run into this before, you break the lead of your pencil, now you're screwed. And some people like a grease pencil, which a grease pencil is great underwater, but now you've got to clean all that, or you can't just smudge it off. With pencil, you can at least come back and erase it, or use a sandpaper to get it off. But anyway, rabbit hole again. Anyway, I do that pencil. I'd have an eraser with me. And then I would also still take a Right in the Rain pen. I would just have it in a different location so that if it leaked, it wouldn't leak on any of my gear. Same thing with the little mini Sharpie. I like carrying a little mini Sharpie with me too, just because it's small, and I like the features of being able to mark on stuff with a Sharpie. especially because it's so adaptable to multiple writing surfaces. So if I had to scroll out a message to somebody while I was somewhere, I could do that with a Sharpie. So I would still take this stuff, but I'd be worried about a Sharpie and even a Write in the Rain pen like this. Actually, it's a space pen technically. That Write in the Rain as a company sells them. However, it's a space pen. You can write underwater, or, all that cool
It's
stuff.
fancy.
In space.
Yeah.
Anyway, take those, different bag. And then another thing that I would do is replace the cordage on this Pseudo Compass. I've done that with all my Pseudo Compasses. This comes with like a reflective cordage line. I don't really like that just because I don't necessarily want sometimes to have my cordage be reflective, especially if I'm out somewhere at night. I don't want to be seen. So I just take some Type 1 paracord and I would replace this, but I would ensure that I keep the little declination adjustment tool that's on here. I don't want to lose that. So make sure I tie that back on. And then a friend of ours had given us this line, the Spectra Line, a while back, and it's black. And he said he really loves it for putting in a protractor and being able to pull bearings because it's black and it shows up really well on maps. And that is a problem. So what I've used for that line on this protractor is the gut from a piece of paracord. So it's great in a pinch. However, it can be difficult sometimes to see on the map. So I'm actually interested in trying that. It came from that Meritac company. I don't think they sell this anymore, which is why he gave us some that he had.
Nice.
But anyway, just another little tip. And we have all that stuff on creating pace count beads. You want to use a figure 8 knot too for this piece of line in the protractor. I think we go through that on one of our articles too. But you want to put the knot at the top so you don't have the knot sitting on your map.
Not screwing up your bearing.
If that makes sense. And then I would also consider supplementing all this stuff with taking a GPS too. And I don't feel like taking a GPS is necessarily super important. However, I love these little Garmin 401s, and I would love to have a second one to put in something like this just to grab if I needed it. However, because I don't know if I would remember to grab it in a situation like this unless it was in here already, which I would use what I have in here now, which is lithium batteries. I would always make sure going forward to always use lithium batteries.
Yep.
And I would have some spares, and we already talked about batteries in a previous episode. So that's what I would take.
And a GPS is a good supplement.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people think it's a replacement.
And it's really not.
It's not.
It's not at all.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of little tips and tricks when it comes to navigation, and we've got all those in an article we can talk about in the episode intel, or link to with the episode intel, so you can learn all about it. We've even got information on how to fold a map or topo map, because that's important too. You might not think about that, but how to fold a map becomes very important when you're trying to look at different sections and keep it in a waterproof bag and things like that. So that's kind of the gist. I mean, I've been using MGRS for years now. I swear by it, and I would urge anybody to learn how to use it because it's very easy, and don't let the fact that it's a military grid reference system scare you. It's really it has nothing to do with the military. It's really just a great way to plot points, and I prefer it over UTM, and we can get into that in another discussion, but I get that question a lot, like why that over UTM? You can use the same grid lines that are on a topo map for MGRS too, the ones that are set up for UTM. But anyhow, lots of research went into exactly what I've talked about because I've been doing it a long time. So you can trust that I don't know, that it's well researched.
Yeah, check out the links.
I'm sure I flubbed something, but I really enjoy navigation as a whole, and I would urge anybody interested in knowing how to find their way out of anywhere to really research the skill and take the time to not only learn it yourself, but teach your kids and your family, because I think it's an invaluable skill and one that will pay off if you ever have to use it. So there's that. All right, guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. Remember, if you have questions, use the pound tag Gear Tasting on any social media network, and we will find them and answer them for you. We actually recently did a question episode, so we are getting to them. So send them in. Also, check out our Crew Leader membership. It's our way of giving you back something in return for your support of the show. And even if you can't contribute financially, we would love just a review and a rating on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever they're calling themselves. Reviews really help get our podcast seen by new eyes, and we'll allow Apple Podcasts to kind of share it in front of people that might not already see it because of the great ratings that you will provide, right? Thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening.